When we learn astrology, it starts simple. We learn the 12 houses. We learn the 12 areas of experience. We make our associations to them, we get used to them, and we see there's the basic areas of experience, and we kind of memorize these basic core factors. First step. And then we add the planets to it. So then we see the planets, we see the planets and how they start affecting the houses. We see that each planet has a different energy, it affects the houses differently, it affects the affairs of our life. And this is the beginning mechanics of astrology, seeing these basic functions. And as we expand on our understanding of the houses and of the planets, we expand our capacity to see this basic level. Then we add the aspects to it, and we see the stress patterns and the easy or difficult times that get added to the planet as it's affecting the planet. As it's affecting the house. So we see whether it's fortunate or unfortunate, or easy or difficult, as it's affecting those affairs of those houses. So when we meet people, we're telling them, well, these houses like this energy, this is your energy, it works like this, your love life is like this, your money's like this, your status. We start working with that as our, let's say, our basic archetype. So these three main functions, houses, the planets and the houses and the aspects of the planets, that's the main texture of what I consider first level. Then we have the signs of the zodiac, or the seasons of the year. So the days, we have our cycle of the day. I'll just go back for a second here. Okay, so each of the houses represents the cycle of the day. It's 24 hours of what happened. It's the basic archetype of the day. But there's 365 days in the year. And each day has a different influence. It's affected by the seasons. So the seasons come in and start affecting each day. The seasons, the same as the signs of the zodiac, the tropical zodiac. The signs are a subdivision of the seasons, but it's really the seasonal influence. So what time of year, a hot day in the summer is very different than a cold winter day. But you still have the same 12 houses. So we start seeing that influence of the signs coming in and affecting the houses and affecting the circumstances each day of the year. Then you have the planets and the signs, and we begin to see, when we see the planets and the signs, we begin to learn that it's not the planets affecting the signs, it's the signs coloring and affecting the planets. So this is a different level. We were looking at the planets doing things in the houses. Now we're seeing how the planets can be affected by the signs they're in, and the coloring comes in to affect the attitude of how that works. And in all the 12 different signs, there's 12 different themes that work out and affect each planet. So there's a long way to go. So I'm just going through this quickly. I'm not trying to teach it. I'm just going over the different layers. So then you have the aspects between the planets, and even with the signs, you have the celestial, the higher heavenly energy, the celestial energy coloring the planets and being the message. And the planets pick up that energy, and they do it easily or difficultly according to the aspects made to it. So they see the stress patterns, and the aspects show the stress patterns of how stressed a specific planet is, and how difficult it is to integrate and to express the sign, the message of the sign, according to how the other planets and the other signs are affecting it. And so that's second level. We put them together, we see them on a chart. So the signs are colored here. So they're just the coloring seasons. We have the houses written in, and so we have the planets and the signs, the planets and the houses and the aspects. So these are our basic foundations. So each planet picks up the attitude of the sign of the zodiac, puts its efforts into the houses, puts it into the affairs of the houses, and does so easily or difficultly or with stress or tension according to the aspects made to it. So that's a quick summation. So on top of this, we have the signs going into the houses. So we have the signs in the house cusps, and we've got really a big factor of our basic interpretations. From there, we add on to rulerships and other things, and we expand on it. This is our basic natal interpretation level. In this chart, the ascendant's not always put on the light. The ascendant is, because it's using the color of the wheels, the zodiac set. The ascendant is where it is, and the shaded half on the chart is the half below the horizon, the first 6 houses. So this is just, okay, not going to stay here. But once we get to this level, as you start studying the planets, and start getting to know the planets, you start realizing they're more than just energies. They become levels of consciousness. They become different dimensions of experience that affect each other by the aspects. It's not just a linear thing. So really, this is more like what we're looking at. We're seeing a two-dimensional chart when we look at it. Really, you stretch it out like a harmonica, almost. You stretch it out, and you have the signs above, you have the houses below, and you have the levels of the planets going in between. So in this case, and you see the aspects are not just what looks like just across the chart, they're really up and across to different levels and different dimensions of consciousness. A very profound effect. So this starts pushing the limits of what we know into having to understand things deeper. Or there's more going on. There's something else. This has happened. That's why we begin to explore more and more into this. Okay, so this is just going to run through each of the planets. This has the moon sphere in. Then we have Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto. When you put them all together, it looks like this. So it's kind of like, this is almost like your spine, your spinal cord, and each level is like a chakra or a nervous center going up the spinal cord, and you have this base of the houses, and you have the crown of your head, top of your head. So when we're looking at a chart, we're looking down the top of the head, down the spinal chakra, right down, looking at all the things on the two-dimensional chart, reading depth into it, or seeing the depth into it. But this is it takes time to remember the moon is a very different function, as a faster speed, a different cycle, different frequency than Saturn, and they affect each other differently. So as we come to this gives our basic, and this is a picture of the initiate. This chakra. This is from India. The chakras in India being like the planet centers, and the light at the top being like the third eye, or the light opening up of understanding by which we're looking down into the chart to see it. And this would coincide it. You could see it almost like that. So this is a more in-depth. It takes it. Suddenly we've gone beyond the two-dimensional planets and signs, or planets and houses and aspects. So suddenly there's an increasing depth that keeps growing on us. And now we're getting into, it goes into yoga, goes into mystical things, into the potentials of who we are, different levels of our consciousness, which ones are accentuated, which way. It starts expanding. Okay. So just come back to see, so we see it as a two-dimensional form. And it takes time to learn astrology to get to cultivate the depth as we go deeper into it. So this is a closer up version. So, I'm not going to get into it. This chart has the constellations around it too, but really the inner center is the zodiac, the tropical zodiac. The stars are another factor on the outside, another cycle on the outside of that. So, okay, I'm just going to stop here for a second because this is a Rosicrucian drawing of the rose and the cross. It's a spiritual mystery of life. It's been used for hundreds and hundreds of years as the source of the mysteries of the crucifix, the rose, the heart, and the cross, and the spiritual path. The secret of it is it's totally astrological. It's a whole astrological key to how we're connected, how our spirit is connected to life. The cross is the ascendant, descendant, and the MCIC. They're your houses. And our heart is crucified by life. We're pulled out into the circumstance, into the mundane world, into affairs in the world. We're pulled out in our attachments into these things in the world. And we get good things and we get bad times and we have the storms or the normal ride of life. But really, to enter into your more spiritual, higher understandings, you almost have to be crucified or die to this worldly attachments to open up and blossom in your heart to deeper, to considerations of signs, planets, higher energies. So that's the first part. That's the first gateway. Then you have the rose and the cross, which is your heart. And around it are the 7 planets, which are the petals of the rose, or the points of the star. They're named after the 7 days of the week, and they're organized that way. Moon Day, Mars Day, Mercury, Jeudi, Vendredi, Saturn Day, and Sunday. So the days of the week are named that way, so this piece of knowledge isn't forgotten. Okay, so you have the cross of life, then you have the levels, the steps, or the levels of consciousness to step up to find your heart. And behind it all, overlooking it all, are the signs of the zodiac in the background with lights radiating over the whole cross. So to be able to be sensitive and receptive to the cross, to love, or to the higher being, or the higher messages, one has to refine or control or elevate the lower to be more receptive to the higher. So the Rosicrucians have huge teachings that goes all around this. But it's just an affirmation of astrology. The key is that astrology is the key. So we're just coming back to the chart again. We're seeing our two-dimensional chart. When we look at the chart, if you take the ascendant-descendant line, the dark half is the half below the horizon. The top half is the half above the horizon. So in the houses, we have our subjective worlds of the first 6 houses. I, me, my things, my home, my family, my performance, my health. We have our personal worlds, which we all have. And then we have the outer functional world of relationships, friends, career, accomplishment, status, participation out in the world. So I always draw a shaded part. I shade in those houses there, and you can always see it. But in here I've exaggerated it so you can see distinctly. There's above and there's below the horizon. So we start coming into these. See, once we get the planets and the houses and the signs and the aspects together, and we start getting this together, we start sensing the aspects between the sun and moon. That's just an aspect. But there's also the phases of the moon going on, our months. So we have the days, we have the year, we have the months. And the phases of the moon pull in the cycle of the water and the story of water on the earth and how plants grow because the moon pulls the water up through the roots and up through the leaves to grow. It pulls the tides. It's a source of life. So the moon cycle builds up to phases. When we start saying phases, we get into stages of development, not just I got this planet and this sign and this house and these aspects. They change, and we're in different. Each aspect is a part of these phases. So it takes to the next. It opens up another challenge. Oh my goodness! Here's another layer. And we go through this when we're ready. So this is the first one. Second one is here's the midheaven IC line just drawn in. This is Carl Jung's chart that I'm using, and the light half is from the IC up to the midheaven. Everything's rising. Everything rises from the third house, second house, first house, goes backwards through the signs up to the midheaven. Then everything sets. Wow, these are tremendously different things. When things are above and below, if your sun is below, you're subjective, more subjective than objective. If your sun is above, you're more functional and objective than subjective. And your purpose is there. And the higher to the midheaven, the more higher profile. Lower down, the deeper it goes. So these are distinctions. So then you have the rising and setting sides of the chart, where you're seeing the phase of everything rising. If you have planets on the rising sides, you're the instigator. You're making things come out of you and go out into the world. If you have it in the setting side, you're watching what's opportunity. This is good. You're reacting to this. You're responding to that. And it responds. So these are the two phases. The right, above, below, rising, setting are the two phases of astrology. They're not really. It's not how we first learn the houses. It's how we run across them, but we come to this in time. Okay, but this starts going in phases of development. So, okay, then on the same chart, this line goes across and divides the zodiac. You have the spring and summer signs on the bottom half here, the light half, when the daylight's greater, and you have the fall and winter when the darkness is greater. So this in the signs we have the subjective and objective world. In the houses we have the subjective and the objective. In the signs we have freedom and responsibility. We have a sense of being independent in the spring and summer, doing our own thing, and we have a sense of belonging and participating and being responsible and belonging in the fall and winter. So there's just in these two types of phases, and here's the solstice, which shows the daylight increasing half from Capricorn to Gemini, and the nighttime increasing half from Cancer to Sag. These are very powerful influences, but they're not presented in a lot of books about astrology. That's the rising, the setting, the above, below, the daylight increasing, the trying to be more free, more independent. And even the Capricorns at the greatest darkness is still trying to set up their structure so that one day they'll get their freedom 55. It's still set up to, they got a plan. It's going that way. But the other signs are more just moving into the group, into the team, into the group more. So Cancer, Leo, Virgo, all those are moving more into the collective. The things they're doing are being molded. Even Leo, hey, look at me. Someone's got to be looking. Hopefully. And then, but it still ties into being responsible and increasing the commitments and responsibles to each other. So this is, to me, a next level of the signs of the zodiac. So we look at our chart. We look at the chart. We got all this stuff in it. It's too much to handle at once. It's the basic archetype, but it has all these multifaceted gems and all these ways of looking at it. We're really living in one facet of a gem. We're looking at another facet at a time. Boy, it takes time to try and encompass the whole thing. It takes work. It's like therapy to go through it and connect it. First we connect it to ourselves, then we connect it to others, we start advising others, and then we're still growing in how we're connecting to it. And as it changes for us, it changes how we have to relate it to others. It evolves. So, okay. Transits. Okay, I'm just going to back up again here. Then you add the transits. This is where I was getting to with the phases. Each planet, the planet, sun, and moon, their phases. We have an aspect. We're born at one certain phase, but it keeps moving around. There's another cycle of processing going on with the phases, and each aspect is a phase of relations between those two planets. So any planet has 9 other phases going on at the same time, as it's going around. So this is where most astrology is done. Between the transits, you see the triggers. Like when we're born, time is frozen, our potentials are measured, there's the chart, and each planet is like an alarm on a clock, and that makes up our natal chart. But the world doesn't stop because you got on, everything keeps moving. Each planet becomes a hand of a clock moving along. And as it moves along, every time each planet touches an alarm, something alarming happens in our life. You can call it something alarming. It's a crisis happens. And crises are opportunities for growth. No matter what happens, the soul is going to gain the experience. Good or bad, your soul is still winning. It's not going to lose from it. So this is our basic astrology. Transits, planets and signs, planets out, watching the time where planets move through certain houses or through phases, through different times. We start getting into the timing of things. And in the development of things across time. This is our basic astrology. Probably 65% of astrology, this is where they work. It doesn't go further. It's enough. It's hard enough to keep that much together. Okay, but okay, I'm just going to go here. Okay, so this is just a recap. We're standing on the planet, half the world's above us, half the world's below us. It's not a theory. It just is that way. And here we are in between what's above and what's below. Okay, now, the sun and moon are also in between what's above and below, but they're higher up than us. So, humans, animals, we're in between planets, sun, moon, they're in between the above and below. They're above us, but they're still, so they're above us as they end up being messengers. As they travel around, they're messengers that guide us as to how we could live more an elevated life. If we learn the planets better and learn their relationships to the signs and the quality, and we improve the qualities of our dimensions of experience, our dimensions of consciousness, wow, it can really change our circumstances. This is a very different approach. You're just taking the houses. It's in the money house. It's in the home house. It's something with mom. It's something. This is taking it to another level. When what's above us, it's either light or dark. We can see where we're going, or we can't see where we're going. That's always true. Can you see where you're going, or can you not see where you're going? Is it light out or is it dark out? And on the earth we stand on, it's either firm or yielding. So are you living on a firm foundation, or is it insecure foundation? Totally different process of how you interpret. And if you're on an insecure foundation, you hardly have time to pay attention to what's outside because your whole foundation's shaking. So it's a simple thing, but here we are in between, so we try to see the lights there just as we're freaking out. We notice there's a full moon. Oh my goodness, no wonder. Can't wait till that passes. We get naturally pulled into these cycles. These cycles are there. We're part of it. But this above or below, these are the two basic factors. Then there's us in between. And we're human beings are either in love or we're rectifying the situation. If you're in love, who cares about the chart? Who cares about money taken? I'm in love. What do you want? But if you're not, I gotta fix this. Where am I going? I gotta get away from this. I gotta fix it. I gotta get away from it. Oh my goodness. Years go by rectifying situations. So if you're working with a chart and you're not don't have a sense of how that person is going to find love or how they're rectifying back to love, what are you doing? Accentuating the rectification. Okay, so these are little insights, but they're big challenges as a consultant as to how you're advising someone, as to how you're reaching people. So again, you get the sun and the moon above, we're standing on the earth, here we are. And this just takes the same point, we're standing there, half the sky is above us, the light half is below us, the dark half, across the ascendant-descendant line. It's not, if you use equal houses, you won't get this measurement. Okay, so like it's not going to show up there. This comes from the actual horizon of whether the sun's above the horizon or below, or what's above and what's below. And even then there's a few degrees where it gets tricky because of declination. Okay, so then you have the MCIC, we're standing here, the point right above us, the point right below us, our outer motivation, our inner integrity, and we have the two sides of our chart. So half is rising. Out of my personal integrity or lack thereof, I'm going to project that out into the world. What an idiot, what a jerk, why are they doing that? Why are they making this happen? What's happening to this? What are they putting out? Do they realize what they're doing? You ever said to someone, do you realize what you're doing? We put things out, and half of us is always doing that. And half of us is responding. Ouch. Oh yeah, oh that's wonderful. Oh, I need you. Oh, that's... Half of us is responding. You mean you didn't like what I did? Oh my goodness. So we have the cycle of how we put things out and come back at how we take them back in our life. This is just simple stuff on the houses, but really, I like this drawing because it creates a perspective around it. Then we have the stars. So over everybody's head is a different star. Under everybody's feet is the same earth. It's a beautiful meditation. We're all one humanity, but we have unique destinies. But when you come to studying the stars, it becomes a really different thing. It's no longer what's above, what's below. They're above and above the above. They're in the celestial heavens to guide the planets and to hopefully get some light to dawn on us. But the stars, if you total all the stars together in the sky, only 10% of the light that hits the planet comes from the stars. All the stars. Any one star is a much smaller amount of that. So when we start to look at the influence, you don't see them directly. You're not going to notice it behaviorally in this house or this thing. You're not going to see it that well that way. That's not how you run across the stars. Most stars, planets are about 1 minute of it. At the biggest, they occupy 1 minute of 1 degree. But stars are like seconds of a degree. So we start going to a whole nother level. At this stage, you got the planet. You know how the signs affect the houses. You know the planets, the signs affecting the planets. You see them affect the houses. You see the aspects, and you watch the timings and see what's happening. Boy, that keeps us busy. That gives us a lot to talk about. But really, that's only the beginning. I just put this here just as a divider. It's only a beginning to going to the next level. Because the stars represent individual degrees. And there's each degree is like a university of life. In that 1 degree, you can get a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD in that 1 degree. And there's 360 degrees in that university. So just when you get to know, I know the signs of the house, and I got all this down, oh my goodness, you're going to have to measure out the degrees? I'm going to have to get into individual degrees? Oh, come on. It's too big. Or it seems too big. So this is just where you had the cross of life. This is just putting the Chinese, they didn't use the cross. They used the sphere, the yin and the yang, as going on the cross and put the trigrams around it. But it's the same mysticism that links the astrology and the Western and the Eastern, measuring the light and the dark around the mystical wheel. So here you still the yin and yang, the trigrams, the hexagrams, the trigrams and the signs of the zodiac and the cross. So a funny thing, we have the sign, the houses of the zodiac. The houses are one cycle, the signs are another, a day and a year, and we put them on the same cycle. Yeah, we're going to get a mix of timings, a mix of confusion. So here, the two are on the same cycle. It's just that they're both circles. we put them on the same circle. But there's depths of thinking in between this. So this is just another one that puts the zodiac and puts the whole I Ching hexagrams around the wheel in the same way to the zodiac, to the signs. So these are, and each hexagram is like one, each line of a hexagram is 1 degree of the zodiac, or measures 1 degree of it. So it just goes on. So we're back to the basic chart, all our basic stuff. At this stage, we got the natal chart, we got the transits, we can look at the timings, we got our Saturn transits, we can see where things are going, what's happening in life, we see the outer disruptions. Wow, that's a lot. But when you start, the next level takes you up, when you start into progressions, you start studying degrees of the zodiac. Each degree is a year of your life. The main philosophy is, from conception till birth, we're about 9 months in the womb. We're born, and we got 3 more months to live to complete the cycle. Well, the 3 more months is 90 days, which is 90 years, which is the cycle of progressions. The idea of completing the inner life, to coming born, to completing what we can, fulfilling what we can in life, and being able to complete the cycle as much as we can and open up to things beyond it. So this is this chart, the same chart with all the stars. This has all the stars you can see with your eyes in the sky. 745 stars. First magnitude, you can see how close they are, how far away they are. There's a whole, I'm hoping to get this in a chart form someday. But really, you're going to try and look at all these and go through this. It's hard to navigate this jungle, to make mental sense of this celestial phenomena. So we think of a degree as a degree around a chart. Here's an actual picture of a degree. It's like a slice of an orange, like a section of an orange. It goes up, down. It has a whole texture to it. There's a middle, there's an end, there's a top. And in a degree of the zodiac, in 1 degree, there'll be stars that are up, down, stars right at the equator, or stars going up to the top. There'll be a whole different texture of stars in each degree. And your planets will come in and be somewhere in this area too, and somewhere up and down within this. So this is the texture of degrees. And you don't come to studying it, you can't even get it that much with transits really. You can sort of sense it, but when you're watching progressions and you get your progress planet for a year, next year for the next 30 years it's in Virgo, or for the next, for 1 year it's in 1 degree. That's a long time. It's enough time to study it. And across that year, it may come up to times where it touches a certain star, it goes along, and you begin to see, oh, now you're not going to see it in your physical world. But if you're dealing with your mental plane or your emotional meditation or your inner development or your heart, these stars can be significant inspirations or ideas that come into you when you touch them. They walk into your soul. So you could look at this is looking at a degree right on. They're like slots or sections that divide it, coming out from the circle, and each one contains it's a filing system that contains certain stars, and it's like a paddle. Like you can see it like that too. How the stars hold, how you can group the stars in different areas within each degree, and keep a perspective on this. On top of this, the stars, when they go over the Earth, they're like a laser beam going over the same place on the Earth, and they touch a 15-mile band going around the planet every day. The same star goes over the same places every day. It's a laser beam going on the planet, and we can line up to that or not. Another level. Okay, so just back to looking at the degrees. So getting the sense of texture of it. Wow, it's profound. Now, degrees are not just the space. We also have degrees of the cycle, degrees of time. So how long a progressed sun or how long a planet moves through a degree, that degree accumulates the light of a sun going through there for a year, or the moon going through there for an hour or two. Our degrees collect light and collect experiences across a whole lifetime. These things can be measured. You can measure the mass of stars, how much light is in each degree, how much. But it's not where astrology is yet. But this is, it's okay. I'm going to take a jump again. So from here, with the progressions, we start to watch the progress. The progressed moon moves through 12 degrees a year, 12 to 15 degrees a year, about a degree a month. Even that's noticeable. Of course, then there's symbols for degrees, there's stars in degrees, there's all kinds of ways people have tried to interpret the degrees. But it's a vast area, and there's not that much literature. I was studying degrees and studying the symbols. I studied about 25 different books on the symbols. But then when I saw how the I Ching connected, each line was a degree of the zodiac. It just opened it all up beyond the symbols. Being a symbol, but also being a practical measurement device. So now, I lost my sense of time. Okay, anyways, I just assume I'm on time. Okay, we're going to jump to something more modern in astrology. The heliocentric astrology. Heliocentric astrology is a newer thing coming up. It's not something we normally use, but it's a step in the evolution of our understanding. So in heliocentric astrology, the sun's the center. The earth moves around the sun like the planets. There's no houses. You can't interpret anything about the houses you can't use in understanding heliocentric astrology. And Mercury and Venus can be any one of the 12 signs, not just the sign or two beside the sun. So you have your sun in your natal chart, then your Mercury in your natal chart and your Venus in your natal chart, and our mind and our emotions are such powerful things, and they're so important, to our life. We have to observe them, and there are guiding directions in our life. But when you get to heliocentric astrology, there's no moon, even. No memories. It changes. You have the sun, and you have the planets, and you have the relationship between the planets. And you can have the signs depending if you're looking from each planet will have its own zodiac. And have its signs, if you're looking from the sun, from the earth, you will have the earth heliocentric chart. If you're looking from Mars, you would have the Mars heliocentric chart, which would have a third inner planet. So the interpretation changes. I'll come to that in a minute. Okay, this is a better look at the degrees. Here's a degree from the earth, and here's a degree from the sun, which is millions of miles away. So a degree from the sun is much bigger than a degree from the earth. And as it goes out, they keep just getting bigger and bigger. By the time they get out to the stars, there are millions of miles of space and material in that degree. Huge. Okay, we look from the earth, and we here have 1 degree in the chart. You know your chart, you know how small a degree is. You know, you look at a chart, there's 1 little degree on the chart. Maybe you can make 3 pencil dots in that degree to fit it in and stand out. But it's small. Only if you have a sharp pencil. But the sun occupies half a degree. Looking from the earth. Because the moon's closer, it also occupies half a degree. But the sun is this huge source of light. It's half of a degree. Sun's this huge, important light. There wouldn't be any life without it. It's your heart. It's your soul. It's the essence of radiating out unconditionally. Then, when you take a look from the sun, and you see the sun going to at 1 degree, this exaggerated degree, but even here the earth is drawn too big. It should be smaller than this. It's 1/200th of a degree. It's really 18 seconds of 1 minute of 1 degree coming from the sun. Okay, so the sun's this huge ball of life. And suddenly, Mercury is this little speck of a dot. The Earth is just a speck of a dot. Like 18 seconds of 1 minute of 1 degree. Up and down. And yet the sun's radiating at all 360 degrees, up, down, around. It's this huge ball. And there's a little speck there, hardly noticeable. Smaller than if you saw a piece of dust on your hand that nobody except a Virgo would notice. There's a little spot there. Oh, gotta fix that. So the other planets are all smaller than that. 1/200th of a degree. So when you get to Mercury and Venus, they're tiny. So what's such huge, vast realms of thinking for us on the planet? It goes beyond the moon, our memories, it gets into logic and thinking and astrology. Wow. And then emotions and our values of what we like, they're so important and they're such big phenomena in our natal chart. When we get to our soul or our heart and the heliocentric chart, they become little dots. Really almost irrelevant trivialities to the soul. If you fall yourself in love, you're not listening to your mind. You don't care about your desires. You can give up whatever. If you've just opened up and surrendered, all of that dissolves. So this is an interesting point with astrology. It takes us up to a point where we can measure everything until we get to a point we start seeing the heliocentric astrology. Suddenly we find our heart and all the things we thought meant a lot, or all the things we liked that we thought was our special things, and all our memories and all our physical egos and our egos, they all just dissolve into being little dots, little specks of irrelevance or minuscule relevance. So this is it's a puzzle with astrology, because we start at different textures and we start climbing up and build it up. Any of these areas you can spend, I know people spend their lifetimes on it. Working on heliocentric, or working on the stars, or working on different levels of it, working on divisions and subdivisions of the zodiac. All these fine, tight, small divisions that are in the zodiac, you try and memorize them in the natal chart. It's hard to make sense of. You can sort of see them. But when you get to progressions and you're living in them with a part of you for a degree, for a year, or if it's Mars or a planet, you can have a planet in a certain degree for 10 years or for a lifetime. If Mercury's retrograde, you got 20 some odd years where Mercury's within a couple of degrees. So you start to run across these influences. Once you get it, you become sensitive to those degrees as they affect other people, whether consciously or not. Astrology is the language of the stars. Words are the trails to images. Images are the traps of meaning. You follow the words until you've gathered the images. Once you've gathered the images, what need is there for words? Gather the images until you've encompassed the meaning. Once you've encompassed the meaning, what need is there for images? This suggests an evolutionary development. Words are the lowest form of astrology. Imagine astrology without words.